Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Vlad is back, and he is better than ever with the release of this latest DLC. So we have the Empire versus the Vampire Counts, as we have myself is going to be leading the Cursed Undead, and we will have Leopard leading the forces of Sigmar. So with Vlad, his new latest update, he does have a nice bit of armor piercing now, and with the changes to foot characters, he isn't going to be getting knocked around as much, and he does also do Terror, which is fantastic, especially considering in the late game, Terror is so nice to have, and with Vlad, well, you can pretty much guarantee that he will be sitting around in that late game. So for the Vampire Count army, we do have a front line of some zombies, and they will be backed up by a couple of Graveguard and some Skeleton Warriors with some Crypt Ghouls as well. And for a little bit of armor-piercing values, we do have some Cairn Wraiths, and they are going to have their own bit of terror to provide to the battle, and they do magic damage and nice armor-piercing values. For the mobility department, we do have a pair of White Kings on horseback, both of which are going to be bringing Scab's Grace to really just kind of whittle down the opponent's forces, and especially if there's any ranged units, especially the silver bullets, that can do quite well at just deleting them off of just a couple of casts of that. We do have a pair of Blood Knights as well. Some nice heavy hitters that should do quite well. As long as they are able to get the charge, they do have to worry quite a bit about Demigryph Knights, as they are pretty much the equal of those, as we do have a pair of Fellbats as well to help just kind of chase things off and provide a little bit of extra support, maybe shut down some range units if the need presents itself. But that is going to be it for the Vampire Counts, as of course we can go over what we have for Vlad as well, as he is going to be bringing just a few things. He does have his Blood Drinker, so he does have hit points 8 per second. Nice little bit of regen there. He does have Invocation to Heck and Hell's Dance Macabre, which Overcasted is an AoE spell, giving some nice extra melee attack, which is always nice, especially in those cap engagements. We have Raised Dead, of course, Arcane Conduit, and Master of Beguilement, which gives a minus 40 melee attack for 44 seconds to anyone that he chooses. Now for the Forces of Sigmar, we do have a front line of Flagellants, just really to hold that front line as long as possible, and there will be some Spearman support on top of that with a pair of those. We have Knights of the Blazing Sun, and they will be supported by a Warrior Priest who is going to be bringing the Hammer of Sigmar, Shield of Faith, and Soulfire. We also have a Jade Wizard who has Earthblood and Shield of Thorns. And now for the heavy hitters, the Demigryph Knights. Of course, we will be seeing these. We have 3 Demigryph Knights, quite a formidable foe. Those Blood Knights will have to be quite careful if they are to survive against this onslaught. And they will be supported by Volkmar the Grim. He is not going to be on his chariot, so he will not be unbreakable, but he will be bringing just a few little buffs. He isn't going to be bringing his Bound Banishment. He does have his Grand Hammer of Sigmar, and he does have the Grand Shield of Faith. So he is looking just to support that cavalry engagement, and that is all he will be doing, leaving the infantry to the Warrior Priest and the front line of Flagellants. But that is our armies, so let's get things rolling as both armies do approach one another. So with the front line, the Flagellants definitely will have the initial advantage. Now the Graveguard do quite well against them. Now especially if I had brought the Stearnsman, that almost hard counters these Flagellants, but the Graveguard will do quite well. We also have the Crypt Ghouls to really try and work their way through the front line as quickly as possible. The Flagellants will be getting a nice charge in, getting into the zombies, and here come the Graveguard trying to come in to support that front line, keeping those Flagellants down as quickly as possible. The Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to be getting a nice charge in right into these Graveguard, as they do kind of pull out as quickly as they can, as a summon is going to go down to try and kind of pin them in, but they do get out in time. The other unit is going to get a nice little charge in and out of this front line, so it looks like the Blazing Suns are going to be just supporting that frontline engagement, while the Demigryph Knights are going to look to kind of peel around and kind of get a nice little hammer and anvil into the rear. So the Blood Knights are going to have to be prepared for that rear engagement. However, Vlad von Karstein is kind of up in the front line a little bit, as the Warrior Priest is as well going to be providing these Flagellants with some nice damage resistance and the works. But here come those Demis into some unsuspecting Blood Knights, though, as one of the Blood Knights at least will kind of get a charge in, but here is that block. But we also do have the Cairn Wraiths coming in to support this engagement, but look how much damage these Demis have taken so far. Just off of that charge, they're already down to 50% health. Volkmar is dropping all of his buffs, so he has the Shield of Faith, Grand Hammer of Sigmar, but there is also the White Kings as well in support. But a nice rear charge here by the Demigryph Knights, but in comes Vlad von Karstein as well, as is the Knights of Blazing Sun. So it is just a mosh pit right now. So we do have Van Hell's Dance Macabre overcasted, so all of these units are getting a nice buff to their melee attack, but the Blood Knights are going to pull out as these Demigryph Knights are terrified, so that is going to provide them for a little bit of avenue to kind of pull out and get a nice little cycle charge in back into this frontal engagement here. We also do have some Flagellant infantry support coming in, but these Cairn Rays are kind of doing quite a bit of good work right here, just kind of mowing through these Demigryph Knights, really providing that extra assistance to the Blood Knights. And this unit of Demigryph Knights is getting dangerously low right now, as pretty much all of the attacks have been focused on this one unit, and they are going to be routing off the field, while the rest of the engagements is just kind of mosh pitting around Vlad and these two White Kings. And Volkmar the Grim is also in assistance, but the Knights of Blazing Sun also taking a bit of damage. But if we take a look at the frontline engagements right here, we do have the Warrior Priest doing some very good work, kind of mowing through the rest of these troops with that Soulfire, doing a nice bit of damage on that front. But these Cairn Rays, they just haven't taken any damage whatsoever. These Knights of Blazing Sun really need to focus them as best that they can to really kind of push through that physical resist that they have, because these Demigryph Knights just aren't able to do it at this time, especially with the assistance of all of these characters. These White Kings and the like are just doing such great work, just holding that front line. And Volkmar is kind of coming in and out of this engagement. He isn't going to be quite the world leader that he usually is in this matchup without his Soulfire and those banishments. That he can't really punish the Cairn Wraiths and this blob of cavalry as much as he would like, and the Demigryph Knights are slowly getting worn down bit by bit. They do have an Earthblood on top of them. We do have a summon right now, as you can see, kind of getting in and pinning these Flagellants and Demigryph Knights in place, allowing just the characters to slowly whittle them down bit by bit, as one or more of the Demigryph Knights do pull out as they are routing off the field, and these Blood Knights are going to try and push them off and keep them from coming back. But the frontline engagement has really just kind of been a wash on both sides, as a lot of troops are just getting beaten down. But it does look like these Graveguard are trading quite well into the Flagellants, and especially with the assistance of these Crypt Ghouls, just to provide that extra little damage output to really kind of wear through those unbreakable troops. But if we go back to that Cav engagement, the Knights of the Blazing Sun are getting beaten down bit by bit as they just get dragged through the mud by these Cairn Wraiths, as they just refuse to go down. But these Blood Knights are slowly crumbling away, just 2 models left, and they are going to disintegrate. But however, these Felbats will provide the job that they were unable to finish up, and they will try and chase off these Demigryph Knights to prevent them from returning to the fight. Now, the Demigryph Knights are engaged with the Warrior Priest, but it looks like we do have a Soulfire coming down, as Volkmar the Grim is also in the rear with these Demigryph Knights, getting a nice kind of rear charge in, and it does look like these Blood Knights are going to go down as well. So the mobility, at least for the heavy hitters for the vampire counts, is going to be gone at this late stage. However, the Cairn Wraiths, they are still doing quite healthy, and we do of course have the White Kings still at full health, as the White Kings trying to chase things off right now. These Demigryph Knights with halberds still on the prowl right now. However, these the Felbats doing an excellent bit of work trying to make sure that these Demigryph Knights do not return. Though they do get a little mixed up as those Knights of Blazing Sun kind of cross paths with the Demigryph Knights, and they do get peeled off, at least for the time being. But another unit does redirect itself and quickly trying to chase them down. And the White Kings, though, are doing a number on this Warrior Priest, who is just unable to get out of the way, as he does finally rout from the damage that they've been causing. And now the Knights of Blazing Sun are engaged. We do have an Earthblood, looks like, going down on top of these units, trying to heal up these Knights of Blazing Sun, but they do rout to these 2 White Kings, and they are off the map as well, as the Felbats do peel off to chase them down. We do have one unit of still fairly healthy Demigryph Knights, especially in this late game with no Blood Knights to counter them. Could do quite well, especially against the 2 White Kings. However, Volkmar does try and charge in, trying to break these Cairn Wraiths as they are slowly whittling down and finish off those Flagellants once and for all. And this is kind of where that battle is going to be decided. And Vlad von Karstein is still kind of a problem with the foot characters, is they do kind of have to do a lot of chasing, especially in the late game when there's a lot of mobility left on the other side. But here comes the rest of the infantry from both sides, as the spearmen and the last of the infantry have been kind of pushed off for the Empire, and the Graveguard coming in with what is left of the Empire troops. Now, these Demigryph Knights do finally take quite a bit of damage from these Cairn Rays, and the Cairn Rays still at 28 models. They do regain their leadership as they were initially wavering, but these Demigryph Knights, Master Beguilement was down on top of them, and they just got absolutely wrecked by those Cairn Rays. Now, the frontal engagement between the last two units of Infantry Spearmen versus Graveguard. Graveguard will easily win this engagement, and especially when you have those Scabs Grates just arcing back and forth between these Spearmen, and that will finish them off, leaving the Vampire Counts with that infantry support in that late game. It looks like we are going to try and get another summon down, trying to kind of trap things in, as they do get the Jade Wizard trapped, and he does rout in as well. But now the Knights Blazing Sun also routing, and things not looking so great for the Empire. The Warrior Priest does come back, but even a nice little Soulfire here and there, it just isn't going to be enough to withstand, especially against two White Kings and a very, very healthy Vlad von Karstein, who has just been unable to be killed. And that is going to be it, as the Empire forces do finally rout to army losses. So let's take a look at the after-battle report, kind of seeing how things went. Blood Knights really didn't get a whole lot of kills, but we take a look at the value. I mean, 782 and a 1200 for the other one. Still not enough for their costs, but they still did quite well in that melee, especially when they were outnumbered so heavily with these Demigryph Knights and Knights of the Blazing Sun, especially with Volkmar support. Because if we look at the Demigryph Knights, though, we do have one that had 15 and pretty much 1500 for two of them, so they did quite well against those Blood Knights, doing a lot of damage there. Knights of Blazing Sun, 900 and 1200 as well, so they actually did quite a bit of good value. So the cavalry for the Empire did quite a bit of good work. If we take a look at the Flagellants, not as much. That front line really went the way of the Vampire Counts, and I mean, Volkmar and that Warrior Priest, I think, was a little lackluster there, because Volkmar really does need to be on his chariot. He's just so hard to really deal with for the Counts at that point, because when he's on his horseback, he is susceptible to being routed, as that is kind of one of the good ways for the Counts to really deal with pretty much everything that the Empire has, because I think they was just trying to save some costs here, and it just wasn't quite worth it to take all the things off of him, especially the Banishment and Grand Soulfire can just clear enemy infantry and even do quite a bit of number on the cav, especially those Cairn Rays. Cairn Rays getting 1500 in value, doing so great against those demis, especially in that late game, just pretty much countering them because they weren't able to really take any damage at that point. And of course we have Vlad only getting 900 value, but he was at full health, and both of the White Kings, though, doing quite well, both of them paying for themselves, and especially this one, and then some, 15, almost 1600 value for this White King, doing excellent against the Warrior Priest and just clearing out that infantry as quickly as they can. Otherwise, for the other troops, I mean, kind of what you'd expect. Even these zombies actually almost paying for themselves. 96, that's not really something you'd normally expect to see them. You usually expect them to see very low values. And then, I mean, both the Graveguard doing good work as well. So the infantry definitely went the way of the Counts, and then the cavalry engagements went a little bit better for the Empire, but those White Kings and Vlad was just a little bit too much for them to deal with at the end of the battle, and that is going to be all she wrote. So this was part of a Rubber Duck of War's tournament the other day for one of the earlier stages. So if you haven't already, go check out that replays on his channel. And otherwise, that is all I'm going to have for you all today. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.